I saw something on Twitter a few days ago that's very common. The Washington Post had written an article about how people need to go ahead and ignore the hysteria around the disinformation board, the new Ministry of Truth that the Biden administration has set in place. And someone was commenting on that headline with the equivalent of basically, well, just wait until President Ron DeSantis is putting people in charge of that board. I bet you'll feel differently then. You'll feel really silly when we pull this headline out and show you what you were saying about not being hysterical when your political enemies are the ones placing people in charge of these offices. And I'm not making this video to dunk on that person. That's a very common thing that people said. They probably just said it offhand and moved on, didn't think about it twice. But I think it is important to stop and explain why it doesn't work that way, why power does not operate in the manner they're talking about. Because like I said, this is a very common misconception that people have. People do not fundamentally understand the asymmetry of the political and cultural conflict we find ourselves in. And when you don't understand that, when you assume that you're on a level, equal, fair playing field, you make serious tactical mistakes. So let's go ahead and break this down. Why is this common understanding of how our government works incorrect? What is the flawed logic here? Well, the logic at work when you state that, once President DeSantis comes into power, you'll regret doing this, is that you're assuming that at some point the left will pay a cost for consolidating government power because at some point they're going to have to hand the machinery that they created of state back over to their political opponents. And then that's when they'll get their comeuppance, right? That's when they'll pay the cost. Now, that's a faulty assumption, but it doesn't just come out of nowhere. People don't just arrive to that conclusion out of nothing. We've been taught this, right? People have been taught that there's this inevitable pendulum swing of democracy that serves as like this natural check and balance on the power of government. You never want to construct a government apparatus that's too powerful, that would be too oppressive, because the nature of democracy means you're always eventually going to have to turn that weapon over to someone who doesn't like you, who doesn't agree with you. And this is supposed to be one of those checks and balances, right? I don't want my enemy to use a weapon on me, so I make sure that we don't have that weapon available for use at all. Just your own self-preservation will limit the aspirations for the power of the government. And maybe at some point this was true, but it's certainly not the way that our government functions now, because the majority of our governmental decisions don't take place at the legislative or presidential level. They don't take place at the level of the elected office holder. The majority of our day-to-day governing decisions now take place at the level of the technocracy, which is safely tucked away in our government agencies. It's the permanent bureaucracy that a lot of people like to call the deep state. You see, we have this myth of objective public policy, this idea that by utilizing the technocratic expertise of these people, we can arrive at an objective and value-free solution for government policy that's guarded against the ugly bias of political actors. Get the politics out of things, make scientific decisions, right? But that's the trick. Whenever people say that they want a process to be less political, when they say that they want decisions to be made by experts, what they mean is they want decisions to be made by bureaucrats in the deep state. But of course, the problem that is becoming more and more clear to the average person is that these bureaucrats, these experts, they're not actually objective. Their expertise, their training, their particular experience does not free them from political bias at all. This myth that education and dedication in one particular field frees you from this political conflict of values is just completely false. In fact, the class from which these people issue and the education which they receive almost guarantees that they're going to have very uniform moral values. In order to be credentialed as an expert who could be qualified to work inside the bureaucracy, you pretty much have to have a high-level college degree, preferably from a very prestigious and therefore most likely progressive institution. In order to graduate, in order to succeed, in order to climb the ladder, you're going to need to show these values off. You're going to need to virtue signal about these things to the people around you. This is pretty much ensuring that everyone who enters into the deep state is going to have this same set of progressive priors. They're going to share this worldview, and that worldview is going to inform all these day-to-day government policy decisions that they are making while they are supposed to be objective and neutral. And whenever you consolidate a new government power, whenever you create a new agency like this Ministry of Truth that the Biden administration has put into place, that government agency, by its very nature, is immediately going to need to be staffed up with these bureaucrats who have this progressive morality. It's basically required by law to be filled with these experts and managers who are deeply invested in the progressive worldview. And the vast majority of that staff does not rotate or get fired when a Republican administration comes into power. They stay deeply entrenched inside that organization, inside that bureaucracy. These ideological foot soldiers are protected by their objective technocratic skills, and the majority will maintain those positions of power no matter who is in charge. This is why things always sprint left when progressives are in charge and basically stand still at best when Republicans take office. It doesn't matter what you learn about the three branches of government or checks or balances or any of this other stuff when you were in school. The way our government actually works is government by technocracy, government by the deep state. And the deep state is a ratchet. And the ratchet only moves one direction because that's what it's designed to do. That's its function. The deep state ensures that our government always moves to the left, especially when it's gaining power, and always stops moving when someone attempts to force it to the right. So this very common idea that once the Republicans return to power, once President Trump or President DeSantis comes into power, suddenly the left will pay a cost. Suddenly all the machinery they've assembled and all the power they've centralized will come after them, and they will regret doing this. That is a very critical misunderstanding of how our government works, how power works, and until you understand that mechanism, there is no hope of fixing it. Any leader on the right who is serious about fixing the problem has to dismantle the administrative state, clear out the entrenched bureaucracy, and return power back to an executive who can actually govern the country again, or they are just wasting the people's time. Thanks for watching, guys. As always, if you like this video, go ahead and click like. If you're new here and you'd like to subscribe, now is a great time to do so. I know this video is a little back to basics for some of you who have been following this channel for a long time, but I did a thread about this on Twitter yesterday, and it was a big thread. A lot of people responded positively, like this was new information for them, and I think it's really easy for us, and I know it is for me, to kind of be in this echo chamber and forget that a lot of people are still learning about this. There are still people who are just finding out about this stuff, and we can blow past a lot of important things because we assume people know about them. It's important to kind of go back and provide people these on-ramps so they can kind of realize where we're coming from. So I just wanted to do a video to kind of make that easy for people to understand. I want to say thank you to the amazing people who are being displayed on the screen right now. They support me on Subscribestar, and if you would like to do that, there's a link below in the description that will show you where you can. Also, there is an exclusive video I'm putting on Subscribestar once a month, so if you want to check that out, make sure to follow the link as well. There's also links to my Twitter, my Gab, the Rumble channel, the Odyssey channel, all that stuff. Make sure to check those out. Thanks for watching, guys, and as always, I'll talk to you next time.